Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy Beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Nerdstalgic podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Human. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good, as per usual. Before we get into today's topic, I want to do a bit of, and say it with me, housekeeping, because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So 3 things I want you to do for me before we get into today's topic. Number 1, make sure that you follow me on Twitter at Nerdstalgic_pod to be kept up to date on anything that I'm doing, watching and reading and all that jazz. Number 2, if you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe because it helps me go up the YouTube algorithm. Number 3, finally, if you listen to this on Spotify on your mobile phone, don't forget to leave a star rating between 1 to 5 stars. Again, it boosts me up the Spotify algorithm. So if you can do all 3 of those things for me right off the bat, right at the beginning, I will be eternally grateful. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about Mass Effect Retribution, which is the second to last of the Mass Effect novels. If you have been listening to any of my episodes so far on Mass Effect, thank you very much. Thank you for joining me on my journey through Mass Effect. I'll be honest with you, I've said this before, but I can't believe it's taken me this long to talk about Mass Effect. And now I'm finally talking about it. It's so freeing. It's like such a weight off my shoulders because every year when I'm planning on what I'm going to do each season for the podcast, it's always like, back of my head, Mass Effect. And I'm like, no, I'm not ready yet. So finally, season 3, this year I'm doing it, and it just feels like such a weight off my shoulders, and it just means that whatever comes next, I'll be going to be so free and less sort of that little noise at the back of my head. I'm sure something else is going to take precedent. It'd be like, do Gears of War, so I can already feel something bubbling at the back of the head. But thank you very much for joining me on my Mass Effect journey so far. Please go back and check my review of Mass Effect 2 out if you haven't already, or go listen to my book review of Mass Effect Ascension. That was also a fantastic book, especially if you love the Quarians as much as I do and the Migrant Fleet and learn a bit more about Cerberus. It's a fantastic introduction to that. And of course, Mass Effect 2 is hands down the best of the trilogy, in my opinion anyway. I know a lot of people really love the first one. I know a lot of people really love the third one. And I'm currently playing through the third one at the moment. I've got as far as going to the council, trying to convince them to help me against the Reapers. They're all like, no, we need to get our forces together. And I'm on my way to Palaven to go get the Turian Patriarch. So I'm basically at the beginning of the game still, but I'm a veteran at this point. I know my ins and outs of Mass Effect. I know how to get in and out of it very, very quickly. So I'm sure I'll be getting this one finished by the weekend. But there's a lot going on with Mass Effect, to be honest. I've recently done one review for Mass Effect, which I'm not going to talk about yet because I don't know if it's going to be out by the time this comes out, so I don't want to spoil it. So I've got one, and then I've got another book review to do after this one, which is the final Mass Effect book, which I've never read. Deception, I think it's called. I haven't read it because I've been told by many people that it's terrible and that it's full of errors and inconsistencies, and yeah, it's just wasn't really well written, which is kind of worrying, but is the reason why I've never read it. And of course, again, I've got my Mass Effect 3 reviews. So there's a lot to come in terms of Mass Effect. And then I've got Mass Effect Andromeda and all the Mass Effect Andromeda books. But I'm going to leave Andromeda to last because for me, Andromeda is very special. I'm probably one of the very few people who actually really loved and enjoyed Mass Effect Andromeda. So I'm going to leave that one for a little while before I jump onto Mass Effect Andromeda. You'll probably hear me talking about that first with Chats in Army before I end up doing it myself, which is fine. I've still got tons to say. So, yeah, but there's a lot to come in terms of Mass Effect. That's basically what I want to sort of get through right now. So, as for this book, Mass Effect Retribution, I'll read the synopsis for you here. So, Humanity has reached the stars, joining the vast galactic community of alien species, but beyond the fringes of explored space lurk the Reapers, a race of sentient starships bent on harvesting the galaxy's organic species for their own dark purpose. The elusive man, leader of the pro-human Black Ops group Cerberus, is one of the few who know the truth about the Reapers. To ensure humanity's survival, he launched a desperate plan to uncover the enemy's strengths and weaknesses by studying someone implanted with modified Reaper technology. He knows the perfect subject for his horrific experiments, former Cerberus operative Paul Grayson, who wrestled his daughter from the Cabal's control with the help of the Ascension Project's director, Callie Sanders. But when Callie learns that Grayson is missing, she turns to the only person she can trust, Alliance war hero Captain David Anderson. Together they set out to find the secret Cerberus facility where Grayson is being held, but they aren't the only ones after him, and time is running out. As the experiments continue, the sinister Reaper technology twists Grayson's mind. The insidious whispers grow ever stronger in his head, threatening to take over his very identity and unleash the Reapers on an unsuspecting galaxy. So, that is the synopsis. Again, I'll admit, I haven't read this book in years like the others. I read all of them while I was in college. So it has been a very, very long time. And usually at this point, I'd be like, oh, my first impressions of the book so far, I'm reading it. I haven't started reading it yet. As I mentioned, I've been really, really busy with making sure that I'm editing Mass Effect 2 review, so that one comes out really, really well, as well as the other Mass Effect thing that I did, so that had to be done first. And I've also got another audiobook on the go for another thing that I'm doing. So yeah, it's a bit busy, but I am listening to the audiobooks of the Mass Effect book, so it shouldn't take me too long to sort of get through them. That being said, of course, please do sort of bear with me. It's going to take a little while, but from what I can remember, and from reading the synopsis, it is sort of jogging the memory of my sort of memories of this book, really. And from what I can remember, there are parts in this that made me sort of relate, not personally, obviously, but kind of reminded me of Dead Space, of that body horror sort of thing. Because again, if you've played Dead Space, you know about the markers and about what markers do. Obviously, I did a review of one of the Dead Space books. But if you know your Dead Space lore, and if you know how the markers work, the indoctrination in with the Reaper technology in Mass Effect is kind of the same as the indoctrination that you get from the markers. With the markers, the closer you get to them, the more sort of control they have of you. And again, eventually they kind of turn you into a necromorphs. Kind of the same here, that you get close enough, you get turned into a husk. You get turned into indoctrinated, controlled by the Reapers, so that you do their bidding. Kind of the same sort of idea and sort of concept. But that's what sort of feelings I was getting from this book when I first read it, was that feeling of the twisted technology of the Reapers, really. Because again, the whole idea of the Reapers is that they want to wipe out all sentient life, and that they see all sentient life beneath them, and that each cycle they're hoping that things will be different. And what they're really hoping for is the fact of, and they're worried of, organic life being, again, it's very ironic, really, organic life being destroyed by synthetic life. So again, the Quarians with the Geth, because that happened, they see as life failed in this cycle. So ironically, they are sort of organic, sort of sentient life, having to come in as sort of robots, even though the Reapers are not robots, but they come in and they have to destroy all life and start the cycle again. It's quite clever, but also it's kind of, hypocritical. But we're not getting into that. The thing is, though, from what I remember really enjoying it. Then you get Captain Anderson back, you've got Callie back. And obviously, you do eventually meet Callie in Mass Effect 3. Haven't met her yet, but I think I'm going to be meeting her soon. So, yeah, first impressions, from what I can remember, I enjoyed it. But like I said, I'll go into it completely new, completely fresh, not knowing anything as I do everything else. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll enjoy it. So, without further ado, I am going to go off and try to find some time to read this book. And then when I come back, we will talk about it. So, I will see you in a minute. So, welcome back. I've finished Mass Effect Retribution, and it's strange, to be honest, listening to like I do it all the time. I always listen to audiobooks while I'm playing Xbox or while I'm doing something else. So it's not overly strange for me, because I can keep track of both things at the same time. But it's strange listening to Mass Effect while playing Mass Effect, because again, because they intertwine so close with each other, and going to Grissom Academy and saving Grissom Academy from Cerberus, while at the same time I'm listening to Kai Lang, Captain Anderson, and Sanders also trying to get on to Grissom Academy to save Paul Grayson, or in Carl Lang's case, trying to assassinate him. It's a strange experience, and especially doing it during the summer when I'm red hot, and it's really like my focus is waning because I'm dying and sweating. It's a strange experience, but I've managed to crack it and managed to do it. So my first impressions coming back to it after all this time is I still really enjoy it. It's still a cracker of a story. And to be honest, if they would have ended here, I would have been happy with that. But sadly, they made another one. But again, we'll get there near to the end. Yeah, my sort of memories and as the things that I mentioned in the introduction did come true as I was listening to the audiobook, that this really does feel like a Dead Space inspired sort of story. Not saying it is, but there are moments in it where you can feel Dead Space. You can feel that the horror side of Mass Effect, which is the Reapers, which is indoctrination, which is the idea that your body is no longer under your control, that they have a way of hijacking sentient beings and being able to kind of like basically being awake, but being thrown in the back trunk of your car while somebody else is driving it. You know, it's that sort of thing, like being thrown to the back of your head to a small box where you can see out a small window, which are your eyes, but you have no control whatsoever. You know, that sort of idea and concept. And that's terrifying in and itself. And then you bring it into sort of giant space machines like the Reapers, and you have indoctrination and all these different sort of ideas and concepts. Incredibly terrifying and creepy and psychologically, tormenting, really. And it's portrayed so well in this story that, to be honest, I would say this whole story is a Paul Grayson story. Like, Callie's there, Arya T'Loak makes an appearance, you know, Captain Anderson, he's there, the Elusive Man's there, Kai Lang and all that. But really, at the end of the day, this is a Paul Grayson story. It's his struggle with losing control of his own free will to the Reapers. Because sort of the long and short of this story, without going into too much detail, really, apart from what I already have, is that after the events of the last book, Paul Grayson went on the run. He changed his name. He just went aloof. Found himself in the Terminus systems and found his way to Omega, where he joined Arya's gang, and he's helping her. And he was trying to kind of make amends. He's got off the drugs. He's got off the red spice. He's trying his best to be a better person for Jillian, even though that she's out there. He doesn't know where she is, but she knows is in deep space. She's safe. He's going to, for her, trying to do his best to change himself. So if there's ever an opportunity that she comes back and she sees him, he's a different, better man. And again, it's character growth. It's really gripping, and you actually kind of feel sorry for him a lot more than you did in the last book. And then Cerberus gets a hold of him. And they, as a sort of act of revenge, they fill him full of implants, Reaper implants, and Reaper technology. And slowly, as you would expect, Cerberus loses control completely. They start augmenting and changing Grayson's body, proper body horror, sort of xenomorph, Marcus sort of concept ideas, where it improves the body, it changes the body, makes him faster, stronger, more resilient, but at the same stage, he's got no control. That the Reapers are consuming control of his body completely, and he's in the back seat, and he's trying his best to and there are moments where he does try his best to talk to the Reaper force in his head of like, don't kill them, we need them, spare them because they can help us, like help you, help me, sort of thing. Like, oh, you want to keep them alive because they're the most smartest genius person around. You want to keep them alive so when you come and harvest, she were here and blah 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 and all science, you know. And he's trying to do his best to with what control he has to sway the Reapers. And again, it's a fantastic case study, and it definitely feels a lot like Dead Space. And this book leads into that idea and concept of Cerberus using Reaper tech to not also sort of assume control of all their people, to have complete and utter obedience from their soldiers and from anybody that works with them by messing around with indoctrination. But also, as we find out in Mass Effect 3, the Illusive Man wants to take the Reapers for himself. He wants human dominance in the galaxy. And the only way he believes he can do that is by taking the tech from the Reapers and using it to human advantage. And again, as we all expect it to happen, because it always happens in all these stories, I'm going to sort of misquote Jurassic Park, but you took the technology, you didn't know what you were doing with it, you worked on the back of other people, and next thing you know, you're printing it and you're selling it, and blah, blah, blah. It's that sort of idea and concept. It's like they didn't know what it is, they didn't know what it would do, they just knew that they could do it, but they didn't stop to think if they should. I've made that quote a couple times, but it's relevant because it's true. Cerberus, how can I explain it? As every single organization in human history usually starts off with noble intentions. I'm going to save the world. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to stop that. I'm going to rid the world of this. And not all of the ways, majority of the time, a lot of organizations start noble. The problem is, as organizations go along, more people join, they get more power, a lot more sort of leeway with the people, a lot more sway in politics and things like that. And next thing you know, the person that's the most ruthless, most bloodthirsty, most conniving, snake sort of person worms their way in and eventually corrupts the whole system, takes over, and the whole organization gets changed. It's kind of the same with Cerberus. The only differences with Cerberus is that they always had a goal of humans being the dominant force, but it wasn't always that at first. It was just trying to make sure that humans had a foothold, that originally that they could stand toe-to-toe with these alien races. And after sort of the war with the First Contact War with the Taurians, the idea and concept was that we want to make sure that humanity just can survive in this universe, really, that they have a foothold, that we're not considered as children. And again, in a way, that's kind of noble. But then it went to xenomorphic, and then it went to a lot of hate and a lot of sort of idealistics of like humans are better, humans are this, humans are that, and it poses humans in the wrong light. And against the Alliance got rid of them, and eventually Cerberus went off on their own, grew and privately funded, and next thing you know, it went completely corrupt, as again most organizations do. And this story sort of leads you into all that, leads you into the idea that, yes, Cerberus is already corrupt, but they did have morals at one stage. But now that the threat of the Reapers are close upon us, really, I'd say from after finishing this book, this took place. It's hard to say. I'd say it takes place probably after the events of Mass Effect 2, probably after the events of the Arrival DLC, probably potentially before then, because there are mentions that, Captain Anson's like, you're normally in a situation like this, I would ask Shepard, but Shepard's off fighting the collectors, fighting the Reapers sort of thing. So we can't call on Shepard. So it's hard to date it as to where it is in the story. I would say probably during and after the events of the Arrival DLC. But even so, it still sets up that idea, sets up that concept, gets you ready for the idea of what Mass Effect 3 is going to be in terms of Cerberus's involvement. And again, I won't spoil anything. I don't want to go into any sort of thing what happens to Grayson. But it's a fantastic case study. And you have these moments where he's on his own, and he's not really on his own, and he knows he's not on his own, that he gets given control of his body at times, but then he loses his control of the body, and then he has to see through his own eyes the Reapers just destroy and eviscerate people, and he has no control over stopping them. And that he went for all that work of trying to be a changed man for Gillian, trying to be a better man for his daughter, and trying to atone for all the bad things that he's done in his life, all for that to come crashing down just because Cerberus wanted to play God and see what would happen if you put Reaper tech into a human, if you could control that person, or if that person could then control the Reapers. Again, very, very fascinating case study. And this is one of those that I would recommend, especially if you enjoyed the last book and you want to see a bit more Paul and see his arc, because like I said, Callie's there, but Callie and Captain Anderson are mostly there in support roles. After Paul goes missing, after Cerberus goes get him, Callie asks Captain Anderson to basically help her to go find him, and that's where their involvement is. And again, it's the same with Arya, and you learn a bit more about Arya. And again, there's this, not a twist, but this big reveal about Arya, and that once you realize that reveal about a certain character, when you play the Omega DLC, where you meet Nyreem, it's kind of it kind of gets, you kind of feel a bit bummed out for Arya, of all the loss that she has been through. Again, I don't want to spoil it, but it's one of those where it's, oh damn, that's she goes through a lot. But again, it's leading up to the war. Things are getting ruthless, and people are sort of, things are happening basically. Decisions are being made, and not always the best decisions, really. Also, we get sort of the introduction of Kai Lang here. This is before he's full on, well, not fully augmented, but the way we see Mass Effect 3, he has been enhanced and augmented by Cerberus. In the events of this book, he's not as augmented and he's not as changed as he was in Mass Effect 3. He still kind of looks human. He's just, he's just more human looking, really. This is his first introduction. I don't like Kai Lang, and if you play Mass Effect, you know as to why. I've just while I was getting to the end of this book, I was actually listening to the part where, at the very, very end, and I won't spoil what happens, but there's a part in the end where Kai Lang is basically on his way trying to escape. And at the same moment on the screen was the scene between Thane and Kai. And I know like I said, I've played Mass Effect 3 loads of times. I know the end result of it, but it's so heartwarming and relieving. And it's funny to see Kai Lang, who's meant to be like, quote unquote, the best assassin in the world, to have his ass handed to him multiple times by a dying Drell. By not even a dying Drell, just by somebody who was dying, who's had his ass handed to him. And I wholeheartedly believe that if Thane wasn't dying, if he was on his top form, he would have leveled Kai Lang there and then, done. You know what I mean? And he would have as well. But again, because he was dying, he didn't get to. But still, he flatters him. And it's just funny. Listen to that part where you see Kai Lang at the end of the book. And again, I don't want to give any spoilers, but there's a scene at the end of the book where it's a moment where you're like, yeah, get him, sort of moment. And then seeing his ass getting handed to him on screen was just like, it was one of them sort of cathartic moments of like, yeah, man, fucking hate this guy. And I do. I don't like Kai Lang at all. And to us, nobody should like Kai Lang. He's the worst, and he's just horrible, and we don't like him. But yeah, this is the first sort of introduction of his character in the Mass Effect universe. If you've read any of the graphic novels like Mass Effect Foundation or anything like that, then you probably get an idea of his character there. But if you just read the novels, this would be your first introduction to the character. And yeah, so my overall thoughts is that definitely give this book a go. It is a case study. It is a sort of character development sort of story. It does extend the lore a lot more, but don't expect Reaper invasions and Reapers and that sort of thing. Like, Reapers are here, but it's more sort of leading up to it. It's a stepping stone to not only give you sort of an idea and concept of Cerberus's foot in the game and what Cerberus is trying to do, and why they're trying to do their things, but also it's the idea of what happens to an individual once they're being indoctrinated, once they've been taken over by the Reapers, that they no longer have control. Because we see it at times in the Mass Effect universe, but we never get any first-hand idea of what it's like. And now there is a theory, and I'm going to talk about this when I get to my Mass Effect 3 theory. There is the indoctrination theory, which is that this whole time through Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, that Shepard is being slowly indoctrinated because of his contact with Reaper technology, because his contact with the Collectors and Harbinger and that sort of thing. Oh, and like the Leviathan tech and all this stuff, that slowly, as you go through the story, Shepard is being more and more indoctrinated. So you could take that theory and see an idea that we have seen a character that is going through indoctrination, but really that's more just a theory amongst fans. It's as far as I know, it's not a theory that was actually chronologically proven. Some people say one of the choices at the end of Mass Effect 3 does prove it. It is I think it's the option, the blue option, the option where you choose to sacrifice yourself. That as you're sacrificing yourself, that people say that like Shepard turns into like a husk sort of thing. You can see like the Reaper's control over him. I've never really, I like the theory, but yeah, it's one of those where I like it, but I'm a little bit on the fence with it. But it's one of those where like I'm going to do a little bit more research, and when we get to my Mass Effect 3 review, I'll talk about it a bit more. But to have a first-hand experience of an actual character that we know of who's been indoctrinated and what they're going through and what that's like, it's incredible. It's an incredible case study. It's an incredible sort of character study, and it's one of those where I do recommend it for Mass Effect fans. If you want a bit more extra, if you want to know more about what is going on just before sort of the events of sort of the Reaper invasion, then by all means give it a go. And even then, if you're a Mass Effect fan and you've read the books this far, give it a go also. You know, if you followed along with this journey with me, then by all means jump on the train and read this one as well. I have bought a copy of Mass Effect Deception. As I've mentioned, I've never read it before, mainly because I heard about all the inconsistencies and all the issues, which, trust me, we'll talk about them if they do show up. And the reason I use the word if is because all the forums that you look at about this book, usually at the top of the heading, and it's on the Mass Effect wiki as well, is the fact that BioWare I'm sort of butchering it, but usually you'll see the fact of BioWare is aware of the errors in this novel and that the next reprint will actually fix a lot of these problems. But nowhere can I find online does it say if BioWare actually fixed any of the consistency issues in the book. If when they did another reprint, if they fixed them. I can't find anybody who says they have or hasn't. So I bought because I didn't want to buy a physical version of it. I thought, well, the most updated version would be a Kindle version. That's the way to guarantee that I got a newer version. So I bought it on Kindle. I'll be reading it off my Kindle, so hopefully they'll make corrections. If they haven't, trust me, I will talk about them. I will do a list and we'll go through them one by one, and we will just talk about why they're wrong. But yeah, I am excited because, again, I'm interested to see what the story's about, because all I know is that Gillian is back, and that is about it. I don't know when it takes place, if it takes place during the Reaper War, or if it takes place just before. I'm not sure. But I'm excited to see Gillian back and to see her a lot older and to see kind of where she is after she's been with the Quarians for so long. Where did she go? What has she learned? And that sort of thing. So, yeah, I am excited, to say the least. There's a lot of Mass Effect stuff to come. I'm close to burnout, and I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to think now that when I get to the end of Mass Effect 3 and the review is finished for that one and it's out, I might take a break for a month or so before I play Mass Effect Andromeda, just because I don't want to be burnt out. I'm already feeling quite burnt out because there's a lot of Mass Effect, and I did think about covering the graphic novels, but then when I realized how many graphic novels there are, which I've read them all, but once I realized how many there are, and read the books and play the games and then watch the animated movie, it was a lot. So I've condensed it down to just the books, the animated movie, and the games. But even then, that's been a sort of a right trial, and I've absolutely loved it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining, but it's very tiring. So again, I want to thank everybody who's been listening so far, who's stuck to the end, who's listened to me ramble right now. I do appreciate it a lot. It does means so much to me that you want to stick around, and yeah, fingers crossed I'll get Mass Effect 3 review out by the end of August. That's the hope anyway. I'm currently, where did I leave Shepard? I think I'm going on my way to go help save Jacob and a couple of the Cerberus scientists. I've done Tachanka. I've rescued the Citadel. Udine has been killed. So yeah, I'm pretty far. The reason I would have been further, but I tend to do a lot of the DLC as soon as possible. I do it with all the Mass Effects. I get it out of the way as soon as possible, just to get resources and money and weapons and things like that. It's always best to get that stuff done out of the way as quick as you can, as soon as possible. Obviously, the Citadel DLC I've still got to do, but I won't do the Citadel DLC until I get Tally. So I'll leave that one for a bit. But yeah, I'm making my way through. I've got majority of things. I'm already way past the minimum point for Alliance fleet, sort of at the war table readiness. So I could just take on the Reapers right now. There would still be a fair bit of losses, but I'm way over the point, and that's just from doing the DLC and just scoping around the galaxy, just dodging Reapers from galaxy to galaxy while I'm getting resources. So I'm making my way through it. It won't be long. My plan is I'm recording this bit on the 29th of July, so I'm hoping to get it done by the 1st to 2nd of August. But we will see. We will see. I've got other plans, other things I want to do that's not Mass Effect related. So yeah, there are plans in motion, and I've got plans of things I'm going to do. But yeah, I'm going to probably go off now and have a bit of a break. And then tomorrow I will start Mass Effect Deception. And yeah, I'll let you all know how I feel about it. If you follow me on Twitter and Nerdstalgic_pod, you'll probably hear about it first there. Also, make sure, if you're listening to this on YouTube, to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you listen to this on Spotify on your mobile phone, don't forget to leave a star rating between 1 to 5 stars. Wonderful. So I've been your host, Luke the Human. You've been listening to the Nerdstalgic podcast, and I will catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.